Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Innate Ability and Health podcast. Today, I'm going to dive into innate ability. I'm referring to this as Innate Ability 101, just to give you an idea of what I'm really referring to when I talk about a person's ability and what they can do. And I'm following this up with a blog article as well. So I've got some notes on this I'll be referring to. But I just wanted to get into the idea that innate ability is not something that we're making up to give you something to feel good about, or the idea that you can be better because we're telling you that. Nothing wrong with positivity and doing things because they create a positive effect on oneself or others. But I like to start from a place of observation of actuality, which results in real changes that improve a person's life. And one of the ways of going about that is looking at, okay, what research has been done on this that supports what I'm looking at and what I know works with clients that I've observed clinically and I've observed by helping people, and then helping you understand it so you can then use it and apply it in your life. So there are a couple studies that stood out for me on this. One was from Science Direct, and it went over how positive emotions can actually expand your awareness, and they help you develop the skills to be able to survive and to have a better life. So it's not the idea of if you have a better life, you will then feel more emotionally stable, you'll feel happier and all that. Obviously, that's true. That's on the level of saying the white paint on the wall is white, right? It's very obvious. But what we want to look at is, well, how about if we just start being more positive? Will we then become more able to survive? And it's been found that this is true. So the idea of waxing enthusiastic or doing things that create a positive sense or state in your life can then lead to better health is backed up by observed and proven scientifically data. So we want to really look at that and not just go, okay, that's a bunch of nice stuff and it makes me feel good for a little bit, but what is it really based off? No, this is real. And this is something you can use in your life to improve your life, right? There was another study this is done more from the medical side by Hopkins Medicine, and they were looking at cardiovascular disease in relation to how a person was doing emotionally, mentally. And they found that a positive outlook significantly reduced the risk of cardiovascular events in their patients. So, and this was even among patients who had a history of cardiovascular disease. So they were, quote unquote, predisposed to be in trouble in this area health-wise. So there was a connection made through studies and observation by John Hopkins, and it showed that there's a mechanism that seems to occur when a person is more positive towards their life and their outlook, which allows less inflammation to occur and in the body. So you're thinking more positively, and there appears to be less inflammation in the body, which leads to less likelihood of cardiovascular events, and that the person was then able to deal with stress better, and they had better decision making in general, which all leads obviously towards better health and a better life in general, right? So these are two studies that weren't done with the purpose of proving what I'm about to go over to you, but just give you information. And you can look at my blog and check that out as well for the links to those, also in the show notes. So what you want to do when you're looking at your own innate ability is realize that you as an individual, separate from the physical part of you, have this ability to produce certain emotions. You can decide to feel more positive, and you will feel more positive. And then this leads to a result on the physical level where you have less inflammation in your body. And it seems to be that when people are more positive, they make better decisions. Have you ever tried to rationalize with an angry person? They tend to be very hard to get moving in a pro-survival direction. They tend to break things. They tend to cause upsets and all these different things. Now imagine you have a person chronically in that angry state, in that state of hostility. They're going to have a less optimal life. For one, they're going to make poor decisions. They're going to run into trouble. And on a physical level, it's been found that people below this level of antagonism, tend to have inflammation in their body, tend to have a tendency towards disease and disease processes, which result from this inflammation. Their metabolism tends to be less optimal, and they put on body fat and body weight, right? This isn't to say that everyone who is in a situation where they have a disease process or they have extra body fat that they don't want, the guilty culprit is always a non-optimal emotional state. It's just that we have to start looking at these things synergistically. They do all work together, right? And anybody who you talk to who struggled with weight or a chronic non-optimal health situation, it tends to reduce their emotional enjoyment in life. And these things work together. So the more they can be enjoying their life, the more likely it is that they will not have disease processes occur and that they will achieve their ideal state of health and body composition. So taking a look at that, you have to give a lot of credence to the fact that if you're positive in life, if you're captivated by what you're doing in life, if you're enjoying life, if you're really creating on it and moving forward in a positive direction, you're much more likely to end up being happy long-term, achieve the accomplishments you want to, and have a state of health that you want as well. So this isn't just a matter of, okay, well, it's nice to feel nice. No, we've got to start growing up on this aspect of how emotions work with the body. And so I'm going to try to describe a little graph that I use often, and I show this to people pictorially. But imagine you have on one side of a graph, the side that goes up, your emotions. And at the bottom is the most negative state of emotion, where you're in total apathy and it works its way up. And you get into states of fear, anxiety, anger, antagonism. And then above that, you get into more positive emotions, like you're interested in life, and maybe you're really enthusiastically or strongly interested in life, and you're happy and you're cheerful. And then along the bottom of the graph would be not taking care of yourself at all, towards the left-hand side of that line, and then moving towards taking care of yourself and exercising really optimally for your body type, eating perfectly, whatever it is, all the way along the right. And then, so when you have positive emotions and you have really taken care of yourself well physically, then when these two meet, that's where your optimal state of life is. Your optimal state of health, your optimal state of success, of happiness, of helping yourself and others. That's where that all meets up, right? So we have to have the positive emotion going and the positive physical caring and handling of the body. So that's how that all works together. And when most people are just working on, I take some supplements and I do eat well and I stretch and do some yoga, and that's the mental part. And that's it, where they're totally missing out on how to get into these positive emotional states. Well, I just want to go over, there's a lot to knowing how to get into a positive emotional state. And it's not just about pretending you feel better or ignoring what's going on in your life in the world that's non-optimal. It's more about aligning what you're doing in life to what you want to do and accomplish in life. And if you did nothing else but really worked out and wrote down, so they're very firmly there, and this doesn't mean they can't change or they can't evolve, but you've really established something that you're going for. And these are your current goals in life. This is a goal for me physically. This is a goal for me with my family. This is a goal for me with my business. This is a goal for me with my community. And this is a goal for me and how I want to affect and leave a legacy, right? And you have all these goals written out, and then you back that up and go, okay, good. These are the actions I'm taking to reach these goals. Achieving and overcoming the barriers to those goals will bring you into a state where you're more happy. You're more emotionally in a state where you want to be. You're interested in life. You feel good about what you're doing. And that will allow you to achieve the physical state of health that you want to, and be able to improve your prowess in different ways, surviving in life, and will allow you to achieve greater longevity and greater physical fitness and all of these things. So the takeaway I want you to have from this is, yes, definitely it's a given. We need to take care of ourselves physically. You need to be exercising. If you're not, okay, good. That could also be a goal. And that's where you get seeing how these things interact, right? And you need to be eating fairly well as you can. You need to be maybe taking supplements that complement what your body needs support on right now. And maybe you need to be doing some sort of physical work, massage, if you need physical therapy, whatever that is. That's all along the bottom line of the graph, right? All those things need to be occurring. But at the same time, these things will not get you the results. You could be doing those perfectly, but if you're in a state where you're doing something every day that you hate, you don't have good relationships with the people around you, your family, your coworkers, your friends, etc., you're not going to achieve what you want to out of those physical changes. So what you've got to do, and perhaps even as important, if not more important than the physical changes, is making sure your life is aligned, making sure you're going, okay, these are my goals. These are the reasons I want to achieve those goals. And these are the actions I'm taking every day to work towards that. And we're not going to pretend here life's not perfect. Maybe you are stuck in a dead-end job that you just have to do to make ends meet. Fine. Do that as best you can. And figure out a way to make that a part of your long-term strategy to reach your actual goals and get into a situation you want to be in. And if that's not possible, reach out to me. I'm sure I can help you navigate this, right? But this is where it all comes and works together synergistically. And if you don't do all of this, you're going to come down with a non-optimal state of living and perhaps even disease processes at some point. So it's really important you have goals and your purposes lined up with your day-to-day actions. And that's how you achieve that state mentally that you want to be at emotionally. And this is the real route. You can't take a drug to make sure you feel emotionally stable. That's not the way it works. You know, that whole hypothesis, and I will go over this in a different podcast, in a different blog, but that whole hypothesis has been thoroughly disproven. And, you know, you have to start really confronting what it is that causes a person to be emotionally stable, where they want to be, happy, etc., and how that affects your body. Now, I want to take this one step further and go over that this isn't just some sort of, idea that it works this way. Emotions actually have wavelengths, and you could direct a certain wavelength at a person and they would feel a certain emotion. That wavelength also causes physical level changes, right? So when you as a person produce a certain emotion, you're tapping into and creating that wavelength with energy. And I won't get into the technicalities of that right now. It's a little bit beyond the scope of a short podcast episode or even a blog. And when you create those emotions, you're creating a certain wavelength, a certain energy manifestation in your body, which then results in a certain state of health. If you're angry all the time, you will develop depository type illnesses and body complications. That's the correlation there. Different emotions result in different types of body complications or health issues. So positive emotions result in health, result in a more optimal state of physical action and activity and well-being and all of that. So you have to really understand that you're creating a certain energy wavelength when you create a certain emotion. Don't get into how that happens. If you want to do that, sign up and work with me. I will go over it with you. But what you can figure out is that when you create a certain emotion, it creates a wavelength, and observe how it positively impacts your body. And this is the level we're at. If you can observe these things, you can learn how to apply these things. And you know that this is also backed up by observations of people who are specifically studying this in a controlled environment. So we know that. We know positive outlook, positive emotions results in less likelihood to have a cardiovascular event, more resilience to stress in life. John Hopkins study established that, right? And we know these are just two that I picked out, right? There are actually hundreds of studies out there. The other Science Direct, this was more about emotions creating and fostering a person's positive experience in life and survival and well-being overall, right? Two studies, you can find many, many more. But check this out for yourself. Start lining up your goals, figuring out how they apply and work with your purposes, and then daily actions that back them up. If you just did that And even if it's just little increments of it, you would have an amazing result, and it would be very, very positive on your overall well-being. Thank you for listening, and I hope to engage with you in the future. Feel free to reach out to me anytime. I am here to help.